Dr. Cleopatra Dombia Henry, Dr. Joseph Ostnes, DG Norway, Dr. Malini V. Shankar, Vice Chancellor IMU, distinguished guests, and friends. A conference like Maritime SheEO needs to be organized every year for next 10 years, no matter how many times we repeat the same speech in front of similar audience. The status of workforce of women in India, even if we talk outside of the maritime sector, remains a serious cause of concern. Today, of the age group of 15 to 49, only 32% women participate in workforce in India. And this 32% is a good news because till last year, we had seen constant decline of participation of women in Indian workforce from 48% to 26%, which was a puzzle for a country that is developing at a very fast pace. The per capita income of the families are increasing. But what we see is that as the family move from lower middle to middle class, the women give up their role in the workforce. And they seem to be satisfied with whatever earning men bring to the household. Two surveys have been conducted recently in 2022, one by Periodic Labor Force Survey has pegged this percentage of women participation to 32%. And there is another survey which has been done by National Family Health, which confirms the share of women in workforce. And one finding that it has given is that COVID has actually driven women towards workforce in India. In 2021, when we used to read research from various researchers, we used to feel that women would be the ones losing their share in the workforce. They would be the first to be removed from the workforce by the companies. And it did happen in 20 and 21, when we saw a number of layoffs, primarily of women who were part of the workforce. But from 2021-22, we have seen now a reversal of trend. And this appears to be mainly because of some decline in the household income. And decline in household income has again forced women to join workforce. The other major finding of this study is that though number of the increasingly women are joining workforce, they are not getting their due in the work that they are doing, and almost 10% of the women who have joined workforce are still not being paid. So they are being paid in kind, but not in terms of money. So there appears to be a clear linkage between the increase in family income in India, increase or decline in family income in India, and women joining workforce to either supplement the family income or devoting themselves fully to the household work. These two studies have also identified three societal norms, which in India we all know exists, though we know nobody has written it in so many words. More than 70% of the men and women interviewed felt that if there is a scarcity of job, men should get preference over women in those jobs. And majority of the people interviewed were women. And they thought that it is men's privilege to take the job first, and women should take the job only when there is surplus left. Less than 25% of women interviewed talked of discrimination at workplace. Even though the employers felt that there is discrimination at workplace, the employees were reluctant to talk about discrimination. But majority of men and women were very concerned about the violence against women in society. And majority of them acknowledged violence against women in society. So these are the societal norms in which we are working. And maritime industry in India is no exception. We get the same group of people in maritime industry, maybe less in numbers, but the society from which we are getting people remain by and large the same. Why I liked Sanjam's approach towards diversity and why a focus on leadership role for women. Another survey has been conducted in India recently, which says that only 4.7% women are CEOs, irrespective of the numbers we see in our cabinet. We have had a women prime minister, maybe the first in the world. We have a present woman president here in India. But the overall participation of women in leadership position still remains very low, 4.7% as CEOs and only 7.7% in the boards. And this is across industries. A lot needs to be done. And there is a debate going on whether we need to adopt a top-down approach or a bottom-up approach to increase participation of women in workforce, and especially for us, everyone sitting here, participation of women in the maritime industry, which of course is at an abysmally low level. We don't even need to talk of the percentage as of now, because what we see is a handful of women trying to make way for themselves in a men's world. We have had certain leaders like Dr. Henry just mentioned. Captain Radhika Menon has been a torchbearer, being the first woman captain and the first woman in the world to have received IMO's Gallantry Award, and still I think remains the only woman to have received this kind of distinction. Sanjam has been working very hard to highlight the issues relating to gender diversity here in India. We saw Mrs. H.K. Joshi, who took at that time a risk, though we never thought it was going to be a risk, by sailing 2 of her ships with all women crew, Swarna Krishna, Swarna Godavari. And this is the kind of, top-down approach we have been seeing. Dr. Malini Shankar has been spearheading gender diversity here in India, first as DG Shipping and now as the Vice Chancellor of IMU. Internationally, we have seen Dr. Cleopatra Dombia Henry. We have been hearing her speeches all over the world promoting gender diversity in maritime industry. There are some institutional leadership also that we have seen in last 2 years. AP Moller Maersk has come up with a very aggressive business strategy for inducting more women in maritime industry. They have set themselves targets, and they are going aggressively towards achieving the target, even though, it will not be very easy to achieve those targets only with bottom-up approach. We have recently seen our two employers, major employers, FOSMA and MASA, coming up with their own strategies to have more women on board. And collectively, I am sure if this trend continues, what we have seen in last 2 years at least, if it continues, the number of women on board, both on Indian and foreign flagships, is going to increase. From our own maritime administration side, we are adopting more of a bottoms-up approach. And as Dr. Henry mentioned, the basic place where we need to concentrate is education. We need to bring more women in our training institutes, and to bring more women in the training institutes, we need to work in schools where we see potential of women joining the maritime industry. That is some place where a lot of outreach programs need to be conducted, and it is time that the industry, which is keen on having more women in their workforce, need to start working. We have instituted a scholarship for women cadets joining Indian Maritime Institutes, and every women, whether they join as officer or rating, receive a scholarship of 100,000 rupees per annum while they remain in the Maritime Training Institute. We were also the first country in the world to have come up with a comprehensive guideline for having women on board. And this guideline is being implemented on all Indian ships. We have also prompted the foreign employers to make sure that the guidelines, basic guidelines, are utilized on foreign flagships having Indian seafarers. And I'm sure over a period of time, these guidelines will be adopted by IMO one way or the other. We have, with the help of, all the employers, developed a training course material for gender sensitization, which we will introduce in all our training institutes. And I have requested the employers also to utilize the training material to give gender sensitization training to the existing seafarers as well, who would face some kind of change in the workforce in times to come. And they are the ones who need to be prepared to welcome more women on board. Because of all these efforts, we have seen some increase in the participation of women in Indian maritime sector. As of now, we have almost 3,746 women who are sailing Out of this 3,700, almost 2,900 have already sailed this year, and I hope another 200 to 300 would be sailing in the remaining part of the year. This year we have seen a substantial growth in women in maritime sector, almost 30% growth, which appears to be encouraging. The number of cadets enrolled in our training institutions as of now is 524, of which almost 200 have joined this year. This year we have also seen a substantial increase in number of Indian seafarers, both men and women. And in this calendar year, we have already reached the figure of 240,000 distinct head counts of Indian seafarers who have worked on both Indian and foreign flag vessels. And if this rate of employment continues, then by the year end, I think we will surpass the pre-COVID levels by almost 10 to 12%, which of course is going to be the highest so far by India in both Indian and foreign flagships. What I have seen in last 2 years is really giving me a lot of hope in terms of improved women participation in Indian maritime industry. I have seen companies coming up with firm strategies for having more women on board, and these strategies are being announced publicly. And I also see them working towards achieving this strategy. I have heard banters amongst the employers who are now trying to poach women cadets from others. And these are good signs. At least people are now trying to have more women on board. And once your goal is set, you have this issue under focus, we will see some kind of collective strategy also developing sometime very soon to have more women on board. Again, as I said, institutions like IMO, World Maritime University, they have played a huge role in bringing this issue under focus. IMO, by declaring a year as a year of women seafarer, declaring a day for International Women in Maritime on 28th of May. World Maritime University, by organizing these seminars, disseminating the information, engaging with the leaders across the world, are showing a way of thinking, and it has set targets in small ways in maritime administrations, in employers groups, in companies, and amongst women themselves who are taking leadership of this very complex issue of gender diversity in maritime industry. And that gives hope. And I feel that in next 5 to 10 years, we are going to see a very major shift in maritime industry. And we'll see increased diversity. We'll see more women participation, which will definitely result in better financial outcomes for the industries in times to come, and they are the ones who are going to benefit from the efforts that they are making today. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me here.